Learn English with Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and a very warm welcome back to Learn English with Podcast. This is your audio sanctuary for learning daily life English, exploring real unscripted conversations, and getting that essential listening practice that actually makes a difference in your day-to-day life.
That is exactly right, Leo. This is the place where we leave the boring, dusty grammar textbooks on the shelf. We are here to help you learn real English from real talk, the kind of English you actually hear when you're standing in a coffee shop, chatting with a colleague, or navigating a new city. I am your co-host, Maya.
And I am Leo. It is so fantastic to be back behind the microphone today. So, Maya, before we dive into today's rather serious topic, let me ask you, how are you doing today? Has it been a busy week for you? You look a little bit exhausted if I am being completely honest.
Well, thank you for noticing my tired eyes, Leo. But yes, you are absolutely right. I am doing well, but my energy battery is blinking red right now. I had a surprisingly busy morning running errands, and then I spent about 2 hours trying to figure out the lighting requirements for a new indoor plant I bought. I love indoor gardening, and I recently got this beautiful little olive tree, but maintaining it indoors is honestly a part-time job. After that, I did a long workout, so physically, I feel quite accomplished, but mentally, I am a bit drained. How about you? How is your day shaping up?
I am doing all right, though I have a small confession to make. I am operating on far less sleep than I normally do. I ended up staying awake incredibly late last night because I started watching a documentary film, and I just could not pull myself away from the screen.
Oh, really? Let me guess. You kept looking at the clock and telling yourself, just 10 more minutes, just until the next scene? And suddenly, it was 2 in the morning? It sounds to me like you were voluntarily throwing your precious sleep time out the window.
Okay, you caught me. Maybe I was wasting just a little bit of time, but to defend myself, it was a beautifully shot film. However, despite the lack of sleep, I am genuinely thrilled to be sitting here in the studio today. Having these conversations with our listeners always brings my energy right back up.
I feel the exact same way. Whenever we put on these headphones and start recording, it honestly feels like we are inviting thousands of friends from all over the world into our living room. We are all sitting in one big, comfortable space together, figuring out this language step by step.
Perfectly said. But all right, I think our daily small talk is officially complete. We should probably get straight into the heart of today's episode before our listeners think we are the ones wasting their precious time.
Agreed. Today we are bringing you a deeply important topic. The title of today's episode is simply, Don't Waste Your Time. It sounds like a command, but it is actually a philosophy for learning and living.
It really is. There is an old saying that time is life. It is the only currency we have that we can never earn back. If we are constantly wasting our hours, we are, in a very real sense, wasting little pieces of our lives.
Ouch, that sounds incredibly heavy and serious when you put it like that. But to everyone listening, please do not worry. We are not going to lecture you or make you feel guilty. We are going to keep this conversation light, actionable, and hopefully very encouraging.
Exactly. But before we unpack all of our best tips, we do have one tiny favor to ask of you, our wonderful audience.
Yes, if you are enjoying Learn English with Podcast, if it brings value to your day, or helps you understand native speakers just a little bit better, please take 2 seconds to like this episode, subscribe to the platform you are using, and share it with a friend who is also on this language journey.
Absolutely. Especially that one specific friend we all have. The friend who always complains, I am just too busy. I have absolutely zero time to study English. But then you catch them spending 90 minutes mindlessly scrolling through short videos on their phone.
We all definitely know that friend. And if we are being completely honest with ourselves, sometimes we are that friend. I know I have been guilty of it.
We all have. So let's break this concept down completely. Maya, let me throw the first question over to you. In the simplest words possible, what does wasting your time actually mean to you?
That is a remarkably good question because everyone defines it differently. For me, to waste time means you are spending your minutes and hours on an activity that is neither genuinely important nor helpful to you in the long run. It does not nourish you.
So, you were saying it is not necessarily about whether an activity is purely fun or boring. It is a question of utility and growth. Does this activity serve you or does it drain you?
Precisely. I want our listeners to imagine a visual metaphor. Think of your daily time like premium, crystal clear spring water inside a glass bottle. Every morning, you wake up and you are handed this bottle. It only holds a specific, limited amount of water for that day.
Okay, I am picturing the water bottle.
Now, if you are thirsty and you drink that water, it nourishes you. If you use it to water a plant, it helps something grow. But if you carelessly unscrew the cap and just pour the water directly onto the kitchen floor, it is gone forever. You cannot scoop it back up and drink it later. Wasting time is the exact equivalent of pouring your daily water onto the floor.
Wow, I actually really love that analogy. It makes the abstract concept of time feel very physical. If you spend your evening doing things that do not help you learn, do not help you develop as a person, and do not even provide genuine restorative rest, then you are just dumping your water on the floor.
And the worst part is, we usually realize it the moment the bottle is empty. You finally lock your phone screen or turn off the television, look around your room, and this heavy feeling drops into your stomach. You ask yourself, why did I just do that?
Yes, that bitter feeling of regret. You sit there knowing you could have used that past hour to call a family member, read a chapter of a book, or practice a new vocabulary list. That feeling of emptiness is the ultimate signal that you just poured your time down the drain.
It happens so fast too. You convince yourself you're only going to watch one quick funny video while waiting for the kettle to boil. Suddenly, 45 minutes have vanished into thin air, your water is cold, and you cannot even recall the names of the videos you just watched.
It is an incredibly universal experience. So now that we have defined what wasting time feels like, let us pivot to the solutions. How can we stop doing this, particularly when our main goal is learning a complex skill like the English language?
To introduce our first strategy, would you mind sharing a quick story, Leo? I know you have a great personal example of this.
I would love to. Let me take you back to a Tuesday afternoon last month. I was sitting at my desk deep into my professional work. My background is actually in software engineering, and I had spent the entire morning staring at a complicated REST API integration. My brain felt like it was wrapped in a thick fog. I needed a break, so I told myself, I am going to step away from the keyboard and take a strict 10-minute break to clear my head.
On the surface, taking a structured break sounds like a highly responsible and healthy plan.
You would think so. I walked over to my sofa, collapsed onto the cushions, pulled my phone out of my pocket, and tapped on a social media app. The first video was hilarious. It made me laugh out loud, and it genuinely felt relaxing. But then the algorithm automatically played the next one. And the next one. The little voice in my head whispered that famous, dangerous sentence. Okay, just one more.
Just one more. Those three words have probably stolen more human hours than anything else in history.
Absolutely. So I kept watching. The sunlight in my living room started to change. I finally forced myself to look up at the clock on my wall. An hour and 15 minutes had vanished. My 10-minute break had turned into an unintentional marathon of meaningless content.
Oh no, that is a massive chunk of your afternoon. How did you feel afterward? Were you at least refreshed from the laughter?
Not at all. That was the most frustrating part. I felt completely empty. I felt a wave of guilt because I still had software bugs to fix. And physically, I felt even more lethargic than when I first sat down. It is like holding a handful of dry sand. You squeeze your fist tightly, but no matter what you do, the sand just slips through the gaps in your fingers and blows away in the wind.
Sand slipping through your fingers. That is such a vivid, poetic way to describe it. So how did you change your behavior after that frustrating afternoon?
I made a firm decision. I promised myself that moving forward, I needed to be entirely intentional with my time.
Let's highlight that word for our learners. Intentional. When you do something intentionally, you do it on purpose, with a clear goal in mind, rather than just letting it happen by accident.
Precisely. And that realization brings us to the actual tips we want to share today. These are simple, actionable strategies that have completely changed how we manage our days, and we know they can help our listeners too.
All right, let us begin. Tip number one, make a tiny plan. And please pay attention to the word tiny. We do not mean a massive, complicated schedule.
Why tiny?
Let's use another analogy. Think of your daily plan like a GPS navigation system inside a car. If you sit in the driver's seat, turn on the engine, and just start driving without entering a destination into the GPS, what happens? You can drive for hours, burning expensive fuel, turning left and right randomly, and you will eventually just end up driving in meaningless circles. You waste time and you waste energy.
That makes total sense. Without a destination, movement does not equal progress. You are just wandering.
Exactly. But the moment you type a specific simple address into that GPS, everything changes. The system calculates the route and says, turn right at the next traffic light, continue straight for 2 miles, and you will arrive at your destination. Making a tiny plan is the equivalent of typing a clear address into your brain for the day.
I see where people go wrong with this, especially in language learning. I hear so many students wake up and say, "Today, my goal is to improve my English." That sounds like a noble goal, but it is way too massive. It is incredibly vague.
Vague, meaning it is not clearly expressed. It lacks specific boundaries or details.
Exactly, because improve my English is vague. Your brain doesn't know where to start. Should you read a book? Do a grammar worksheet? Speak to a native speaker? Because the brain is overwhelmed by the size of the task, it often chooses to do absolutely nothing at all. Instead, your plan needs to be tiny and specific. Tell yourself, today I will learn and write down 3 new verbs. Or, today I will listen to exactly 12 minutes of a podcast. Or, today I will read a single paragraph of a news article.
That feels so much lighter and more achievable. I have a very personal example of how well this works. A few years ago, I decided I wanted to challenge myself by learning German. I was incredibly motivated at first, so I made a grand declaration. I will sit at my desk and study complex German grammar for 1 full hour every single evening without fail.
Oh, wow. Going straight from 0 to an hour every day. Let me guess how that ended.
It was a disaster. It was simply too big of a commitment. By the 3rd day, I was exhausted from work. The thought of sitting for an entire hour felt like a mountain I had to climb. I started skipping days, which made me feel guilty, and that guilt made me want to avoid the language entirely.
It is the classic cycle of burnout. How did you break that cycle?
I drastically reduced my expectations. I changed my daily plan from 1 hour to just 10 minutes. I told myself, Maya, no matter how tired you are, you can survive 10 minutes of vocabulary practice. That was my only promise to myself.
Did that mental shift make a difference?
It changed everything. Because 10 minutes is such a tiny address in the GPS, I never felt scared or overwhelmed to start. Most days, once I started, I naturally kept going for 20 or 30 minutes because I was enjoying it. But on the tough days, I stopped at 10 minutes, closed my notebook, and still felt a profound sense of pride because I kept my promise.
That is the magic of the tiny plan. You eliminate the friction of getting started. You do not waste precious mental energy debating what to do. You just follow the map. Okay, I think we have covered tip 1 thoroughly. What is tip number 2?
Tip number 2 is one of my absolute favorites. Learn to utilize your pocket time.
Pocket time. I love the sound of that phrase, even if it is not in a standard dictionary. Explain what you mean.
Let's switch from water and cars to currency. Imagine your daily time as a collection of coins in your wallet. Throughout your day, you have a few large, heavy coins. These are your uninterrupted 1 hour or 2 hour blocks of time, like when you sit down for dinner or focus on a major work project. But mixed in with those large coins, your pockets are filled with dozens of tiny pennies and dimes.
You mean those random scattered fragments of time? A 5-minute gap here, a 7-minute delay there, a 3-minute wait over there.
Exactly. Think about waiting on the platform for the morning train, standing in line at the grocery store, waiting for the water to boil in the kitchen, or waiting in the lobby for a doctor's appointment. Most people treat these tiny coins of time like they are completely worthless. They mentally throw them in the trash by instantly reaching for their phones and mindlessly scrolling.
It is almost an automatic reflex at this point. Our brains hate being bored, even for 60 seconds.
But if you consciously collect those tiny coins of time instead of throwing them away, they eventually stack up into a massive fortune of learning. You can review your 3 tiny vocabulary words while standing in the bakery line. You can put one earbud in and listen to 5 minutes of an English podcast while you fold your laundry. You can read a short email newsletter in English while drinking your morning coffee.
This is such a realistic approach to learning because nobody's life is perfectly structured. I actually have a former colleague who achieved fluency using almost entirely pocket time. She is a working professional with 2 young, energetic kids, so her house is always chaotic. She told me once, like, Leo, I literally never have a quiet, uninterrupted hour to myself. It just doesn't exist in my world.
I know so many people who are in that exact situation. It feels impossible to study.
But she did not use that as an excuse to quit. She just aggressively harvested her pocket time. She spent 5 minutes reviewing flashcards on her phone while walking from her office to the bus stop. She read English articles for 10 minutes during her lunch break. She listened to audiobooks for 7 minutes while washing the dinner dishes. Month by month, those tiny, seemingly insignificant drops of water filled up her bottle. Within a year, her listening comprehension was stellar, and she was speaking with remarkable confidence.
That is incredibly inspiring. It proves that a lack of time is usually an illusion. It is actually a lack of utilizing the margins of our days. So, for everyone listening right now, ask yourself, where is your hidden pocket time hiding today? Find it and use it.
Excellent advice. Let us keep the momentum going. What is tip number 3?
Tip number 3 is crucial for long-term survival in language learning. Make English fun.
This sounds obvious, but it is deeply profound. If studying a language constantly feels like a miserable punishment, human psychology dictates that you will eventually find an excuse to run away from it.
Absolutely. Imagine observing a young child. They are naturally curious and want to build things with blocks. But imagine if, every time they picked up a block, an adult stood over them and shouted, "No, you are doing it wrong. The angle is incorrect. Do it perfectly or do not do it at all."
The child would instantly drop the blocks, start crying, and never want to play that game again. The joy is completely destroyed by the pressure.
Adult brains are remarkably similar. We just hide it better. Your neurological system actively resists constant, unrewarding stress. If interacting with the English language always feels heavy, serious, and exhausting, your subconscious mind will eventually say, "No, thank you. I'm going to go watch a funny video instead."
So, how do we hack our own brains? How do we transform a challenging academic task into an engaging game?
The secret is integration. You must connect the English language to the hobbies and passions you already possess. Do not treat English as a separate, isolated chore.
Give me an example of how that works in practice.
Well, take my own personal interests, for instance. Outside of the studio, I am heavily invested in exploring mindfulness, particularly breathing techniques and understanding how to align internal energy centers. I love doing these deep guided meditations. A while ago, I realized I could just switch the audio tracks from my native language to English. I was already highly motivated to do the meditation, so my brain eagerly focused on understanding the English instructions. Because the context was relaxing and profoundly interesting to me, acquiring the new vocabulary felt effortless. It was not a chore, it was a joy.
That is brilliant. You bypassed the resistance because the core activity was a reward in itself. I did something very similar with music when I was younger. I was obsessed with certain rock bands. I would go online, print out the lyric sheets, and sit in my room listening to the tracks on repeat. I would circle the words I didn't know, look them up, and then sing along as loudly as I could. I was mimicking the singer's pronunciation, learning colloquial slang, and absorbing complex grammar structures without ever opening a textbook.
Exactly. And because you were having fun, you were spending hours immersed in the language without ever feeling like you were wasting your time or working too hard. So, tip 3 is a reminder to play. Watch a cooking tutorial in English, read about your favorite sports team in English, or play video games on global servers where you have to type in English. Protect your joy.
Okay, we are moving into slightly dangerous territory now. We need to talk about the villains in our story. Maya, please introduce tip number 4.
Tip number 4, you must aggressively watch out for the time thieves.
Time thieves. That sounds like a gang of villains from a comic book. What exactly is a time thief?
A time thief is any activity, app, or habit that quietly steals your most valuable resource, your time, without offering you anything of genuine value in return. For the vast majority of modern society, the most notorious time thief lives right inside our pockets: social media algorithms.
Social media is a fascinating paradox. It is incredibly useful for staying connected, finding inspiration, and even learning languages. But if you walk into the digital forest without a compass, the wolves will eat you. The platforms are engineered by some of the smartest software engineers in the world, and I say that as a software engineer, to capture and hold your attention for as long as humanly possible.
We have all fallen victim to it. I vividly remember sitting on the edge of my bed one evening. My only intention was to open my phone, reply to a single text message from my sister, and immediately go to sleep. But right beneath her message was a notification. I clicked it. It led to a short comedy clip. That clip led to a comment section where strangers were arguing. I read the argument, which led me to an obscure news article. An hour later, my eyes were burning. My brain was overloaded with useless trivia, and I had learned absolutely nothing of value.
That is the defining characteristic of a time thief attack. You finish the activity feeling mentally bloated, exhausted, and strangely empty. So, how do we build defenses against these digital thieves? We cannot just throw our smartphones into the ocean.
No, we cannot. The solution is creating physical and digital boundaries. You have to establish personal rules. For example, when it is time to execute my tiny plan for learning, my phone is physically banished to another room. It goes on the kitchen counter while I study in the living room. If I cannot see it, the temptation drops by 90%.
Distance is a great defense. I use digital boundaries. I go into the settings of my phone and turn off all non-essential notifications. My phone is no longer allowed to buzz, beep, or flash unless it is a direct phone call from a human being. It completely changes the dynamic. I check my phone when I want to, not when the device commands me to.
It is a perfect metaphor. You are locking the front door of your house. You don't necessarily hate the people walking down the street, but you are protecting your personal space. When you protect your focus, you operate with incredible efficiency. A task that takes a distracted person 2 hours can be finished by a focused person in 20 minutes. By defending your attention, you are literally buying back hours of your life.
Which leads us perfectly to an incredibly important question, Maya. If the central theme of this podcast is don't waste your time, does that mean our listeners should be aggressively working, studying, and producing every single minute of their waking lives? Should we feel guilty for sitting on the couch and doing absolutely nothing?
Absolutely not, and I am so glad you brought this up. Tip number 5 is perhaps the most misunderstood rule of productivity. Genuine rest is never a waste of time.
Say that louder for the people in the back. We live in a hustle culture that glorifies exhaustion, but we have to remember the biology of the human body. Think about the phone in your hand. What happens if you run heavy applications on it all day? Maximizing the screen brightness and you stubbornly refuse to plug it into the charger?
It powers down. The screen goes black, and the device becomes an expensive paperweight until you give it power.
The human nervous system operates on the exact same principle. We are biological batteries. If we are constantly working at our jobs, studying English grammar, running errands, and obsessing over our goals without ever pausing, our internal battery drops to 0%. We crash.
And when you crash, the quality of everything you do plummets. I learned this lesson the hard way. A few years ago, I was facing a deadline for a creative writing project. It was midnight. I was exhausted, but I forced myself to sit at my laptop and write. I spent 2 agonizing hours producing a few pages of text. I finally gave up and went to sleep. The next morning, feeling refreshed, I reread what I wrote. It was absolute garbage. I deleted it all and rewrote the entire section brilliantly in just 30 minutes.
That is the ultimate proof. Pushing through severe fatigue is almost always a mathematical error. Sometimes the most productive, efficient thing you can do for your English learning journey is to close the book. Take a long, slow walk through a park without any headphones, or simply take a nap. Rest is the required maintenance that allows you to perform at a high level later.
It all comes down to finding equilibrium. You need a designated time to push yourself and study. You need a time to fulfill your work obligations. You need time for pure, silly fun. And you absolutely need time for deep, restorative rest. When you balance those four elements, you build a sustainable life.
A sustainable life. I love that. All right, Maya, we have shared some deep concepts and used a lot of advanced vocabulary today. I think it is only fair that we slow down the pace and give our listeners a proper review before we conclude.
I agree completely. Let's embark on a quick vocabulary tour. These are the specific terms you need to master if you want to articulate the concepts of time management effectively.
The first word we heavily emphasized was intentional.
Yes, being intentional is an adjective. It describes doing something with a conscious purpose, carefully and deliberately, rather than acting on autopilot or by accident. For instance, you could say, I am trying to be more intentional about how I spend my mornings, or she made an intentional decision to delete social media from her phone.
Excellent. Then we contrasted that with the word vague.
Vague is another adjective. It means something is not clearly expressed, described, or decided. It is blurry and lacks precision. For example, telling your boss, I will finish the report soon is a vague promise. But saying, I will email the PDF report by 4 p.m. on Thursday is precise and clear.
Next up was our favorite metaphorical phrase, pocket time.
While you will not find pocket time in an academic dictionary, it is a brilliant colloquial phrase to use in conversation. It refers to those brief, 5 to 10 minute fragments of unstructured time scattered throughout your daily schedule. You could tell a friend, I finally finished reading that novel by utilizing my pocket time on my daily commute.
Then we discussed feeling distracted.
Distracted is the state of being unable to concentrate because your attention is being pulled in multiple different directions simultaneously. For instance, I tried to study in the cafe, but the loud music made me feel completely distracted. Or he is constantly distracted by the notifications popping up on his laptop screen.
We also warned our listeners about the time thief.
Yes, a highly descriptive noun phrase. A time thief is any object, habit, or activity that consumes hours of your life without providing intellectual, emotional, or physical value. Endlessly scrolling through celebrity gossip sites is my biggest time thief.
We also use the powerful verb invest.
To invest usually refers to finance, but regarding time, it means dedicating your current hours, energy, or resources into an activity with the expectation of achieving a beneficial result in the future. By listening to this podcast today, you are investing in your future communication skills.
Almost at the end. We talked about having a solid routine.
A routine is a noun. It is a sequence of actions that you follow regularly, a standard procedure. My morning routine consists of brewing coffee, watering my plants, and writing in my journal.
And the final beautiful concept, balance.
Balance is a state where different elements are in the correct proportions. You are not leaning too heavily in one direction. Achieving a healthy balance between ambitious career goals and a peaceful personal life is the ultimate challenge.
Fantastic review, Maya. And to everyone listening, if you didn't memorize every single definition instantly, please do not panic. That is the beauty of a podcast. You can rewind this audio and listen to this segment as many times as you need.
Absolutely. In fact, we want to give you a small challenge right now. Choose just one of those vocabulary words, let it sit in your mind, and try to construct your own original sentence using it.
You can simply whisper the sentence to yourself while you're walking. Or, if you are feeling particularly brave today, scroll down to the comment section of this episode and type your sentence out for the world to see.
We highly encourage the comment section. It is like a supportive global gymnasium for your brain. We are all here to spot each other and help lift the heavy weights of language learning.
So, Maya, as we bring this episode to a close, let's offer a final piece of actionable advice. If a listener is sitting there thinking, this all sounds inspiring, But what exact step should I take the moment this audio stops playing? What do we tell them?
We give them a simple 4-step action plan. Step 1. Before you go to sleep tonight, choose one incredibly tiny English goal for tomorrow. Just one. For instance, decide, I will write down and memorize 2 new adjectives.
Step 2. Look at your daily schedule and identify exactly when you will complete that tiny goal. Find your pocket time. Say, I will memorize those 2 words while I am waiting for the bus at 8:15 a.m.
Step 3. Inject a little bit of fun into the process. Connect the learning to something you already enjoy. If you love music, translate the chorus of your favorite pop song.
And step 4, which is perhaps the most vital. The moment you complete that tiny goal, take a breath and verbally praise yourself.
Yes, literally speak kindly to your own mind. Say, great job today. I kept my promise to myself. I invested my time wisely. That tiny moment of positive reinforcement physically changes the neural pathways in your brain. You transition from being your own harshest critic to becoming your own personal coach.
Your own personal coach. I think that is the perfect note to end on. Let's do a rapid-fire recap of our 5 core principles to lock them into memory. Number 1. Make a tiny plan. Give your day a clear GPS address.
Number 2, aggressively harvest your pocket time. Pick up those little coins of time.
Number 3. Make the language fun. Connect English to your genuine passion so it never feels like a punishment.
Number 4, build high walls to protect yourself against the digital time thieves. Guard your focus.
And number 5, never feel guilty for recharging your battery. Genuine rest is not a waste of time. It is a biological necessity.
Remember, your time on this earth is your most valuable asset. You do not have to be a perfect student, and you do not have to study for 3 hours a day. You just need to make tiny, intentional improvements.
Even 10 focused, joyful minutes a day will completely transform your abilities over the span of a year. We know you have the capability to do this.
And now we turn the microphone over to you. We have a question for our community. What is your personal biggest time thief? And what is one tiny boundary you're going to set today to protect your time?
Drop your answers in the comments below. Reading your strategies might be the exact inspiration another learner needs today.
And as always, if this episode brought you value, please like, subscribe, and send the link to a friend who is on this journey with you.
Thank you incredibly much for choosing to spend the last stretch of time with us. You absolutely did not waste these minutes. You invested them deeply into your own personal growth.
We are so proud of the effort you are putting in. You have been listening to Learn English with Podcast with your hosts, Maya and Leo.
Until we meet again in the next episode, protect your time, keep your plans tiny, and always remember to be incredibly kind to yourself.
Goodbye, everyone. Have a wonderful, intentional day.
Take care, everyone. Bye.